Morning, everybody, and welcome to the Napier People and Places Committee meeting, Thursday, 7th of September 2023. Can we all please stand for the opening karakia? Toru wha.
Tū taua mai i runga, tū taua mai i raro, tū taua mai i roto, tū taua mai i waho. Kia taua ai, te mauri tū, te mauri ora, ki te katoa, haumi e, hui e, tae ki e.
Just a reminder, this meeting is being recorded and is live streamed on the Council's Facebook page. I have apologies for Councillor Simpson and Evelyn Ratimer and Deputy Mayor Brosnan. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Crown, Councillor Price. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Any against? No. Motion is carried. Are there any conflicts of interest to declare? There is no public forum today. Are there any announcements by the Mayor?
Morena, just wanting to say that we have our Cyclone Gabrielle Recognition Awards this evening, so we're all really looking forward to going along and acknowledging and celebrating with the individuals and the community groups that have been nominated by our community to accept these awards. So, yeah, a really special night, so it would be great.
Excellent, thank you. Announcements by the Chair, I'll do those at the end of the meeting. Any minor matters not on the agenda for discussion? Moving on. Are there any announcements by management?
No, Mr. Chair.
Confirmation of minutes, that the minutes of the Napier People and Places Committee meeting held on Thursday, 4th of May, 2023 be taken as a true and accurate record of the meeting. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Crystal, Councillor Mawson. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Carried. We move into our open agenda. Just to put it out there early, we will be breaking at the completion of our first item, so we can have discussion with the people that are here, and if anyone's got any questions after the presentation. Right, agenda item 1, social housing developments update, and that's on page 5 of your agenda. And we have a presentation by Naomi Whitewood of Kāinga Ora, followed by Karen Bartlett of the Ministry of Social Development, who is accompanied by housing managers Wilma Hawkins and Stephen Brown. So, welcome, team. Yeah, it's important to do so it can be picked up online. Sorry to do that to you.
Kia ora koutou. Nā mihi kia koutou i ngā rangatira, i ngā ringawira, i ngā kaimahi koutou mā. Tēnā koutou katoa. He uri whakaheke tēnei mō Ngāti Porou me Ngāpuhi hoki, no tūranga e noho ana. Nō reira, ko nau mai Whitewood tōku ingoa. Kei te mahi au he ringatohu mō Kāinga Ora. Nō reira, kei te mihi, kei te mihi, kei te mihi. Morena everybody, my name is Naumai. I feel really weird sitting here reaching out to the microphone. So I'm going to talk fast, so my sincerest apologies. I need to leave by 10 o'clock to move to another meeting, but Karen and the team will continue with the presentation. I also just want to suggest that we are doing this a little bit back to front. Karen and Wilma and Stephen have the information around the housing environment and the demand and the need that's across Napier. But I am going to just use the first part just to give you a description around the space from a public housing perspective, from a Kāinga Ora lens. Kia ora. What do I do here? Do I just do it myself? Yes. For that, and For those that don't know about Kāinga Ora, Kāinga Ora is a fairly new organisation that came into being in 2019, 2020. Kāinga Ora is the formation of 3 organisations that came together as one. So most of us will kind of relate to Kāinga Ora as the old Housing New Zealand, where we were the landlord, the tenancy managers for public housing across New Zealand. So there's that entity. There's a build construction entity, which was known as Hobsonville Build Company, that also came into being under Kāinga Ora. And Kāinga Ora also has an urban development function in terms of supporting councils and communities around our urban development aspirations. What we're trying to achieve, is ensuring that we can provide an increase of warm, dry, healthy public homes across New Zealand. The impact on that we look for, particularly across the East North Island, which I forgot to let you know. So East North Island kind of spans from Takapau in the central Hawke's Bay, all the way through Hawke's Bay, all the way up to the top of the east coast in Pōtaka. So we have quite a number of homes that span that geographical spread. And across that region, we're looking to decrease the number of mokopuna, or children that are living in temporary housing across our region. And that's something that Kāinga Ora and the Ministry of Social Development and the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development try to focus on. We also have a role as an urban development entity to ensure that we are contributing to the development of safe, thriving and fantastic community spaces. And that's not an easy role to undertake, and that's also a significant role that the Napier City Council plays in that respect. And we also have a responsibility to ensure that we can partner with councils and mana whenua across Aotearoa. And that again is a moving feast. We have many mana whenua entities, iwi, hapu, Māori communities, and ensuring that we can meet obligations in that respect. In saying that, Kāinga Ora is a government entity. We're not a government agency. So the government entity, the government agency responsible for housing is the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development. And we are one of the entities that the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development utilise in order to fulfil their obligations as a treaty partner with the Crown. Obligations as a provider and as the entity that has to oversee the system for housing across New Zealand in all aspects. Our priorities are around ensuring that we can look to see where we can utilise our investment in the best way possible. Bearing in mind the investment pipeline for Kāinga Ora was only guaranteed till 2024, and there are negotiations in place right now to extend further investment until 2025, and we're waiting to hear what the outcome on that is. We have a responsibility to build capability across the sector so that we can increase the housing pipeline, responsibility in partnerships, and then most significantly for me, a responsibility to support the wellbeing of our customers and our whānau that live in our homes. Key strategic drivers. This stuff's going to bore you a little bit, but it is important to share this with you. We do have to meet the government policy and direction, and so some of that is about increasing the number of homes that are made available within the subsidised rental environment. We have a strategy that we have to meet, which is also about ensuring that we look at how we make better use of our land, the holdings that the Crown already own and future potential land holdings, of which I will say we do not take gaining future land holdings lightly, and that has to be done in partnership with mana whenua and the councils. Supporting the aspirations for Māori, so that's with iwi, with mana whenua, post-settlement governance entities, even our small trusts. We have to be aware of and looking at how we can shift and pivot to support their aspirations. supporting the planning and regulatory responsibilities for the Napier City Council. We can't go anywhere without talking about the weather events that have happened across the North Island these days. Alignment with key community and industry stakeholders, and then looking at specific investment parameters. What that means is we have those financial metrics like you that we need to meet, and in this current climate, in this current environment, those metrics are really difficult for us to meet with what we've got available to us. There's one driver that's missing from here for Napier, and that is where we align ourselves to a strategic housing approach for a particular district or a particular region. And that's something that we've been talking with Mayor Wise for a number of times and different senior leaders within the Napier City Council. And that's something that I look forward to, is looking at what the overall housing strategy will be across Ahuriri and what role that we can all play in that. Some numbers. So within Napier, Kāinga Ora has just over 1,400 households, and that needs to increase. Within that household, we formally have around 3,700 customers in those houses. That is the formal number. That won't be the actual number. Yep. Interestingly, in Napier, half of those are tamariki, are children, and so that's quite a significant demographic to consider. And then we also have other demographics, particularly with elderly tenants that live alone, which would probably be a strong profile for Napier. Average length of tenancy is around 10 years, and that's quite short in terms of the average length of tenancy. But don't get me wrong, we do have whānau that have been living in their homes here in Napier for 3 to 4 generations. And again, in Napier, and this is a profile across the whole of the East North Island, our population stats in terms of the number of Māori that we serve and we look after in Kāinga Ora is way above the average, and that's something that we see across the whole of the East North Island. This is the bit I was saying to Thunis that's probably going to shock you a little bit. So in terms of the role that Kāinga Ora needs to play, we have just over 460 homes that are either delivered, that are in progress, or are in planning for Napier. So if you go to the table to the side, there are 80 homes that have been delivered since 2021. Now, that number's quite low compared to what we're doing in other districts, but it is about to ramp up. 181 homes that are in progress from a redevelopment perspective, and I'll quickly describe that soon. There are 69 homes which are available for Kāinga Ora to purchase, to add to the pipeline. And there's still around about 130 homes that are in planning. So in total, though, that's quite a high number of homes that are about to come into the Napier district. So the difference between the redevelopment piece and the homes to be purchased piece. So Kāinga Ora has a responsibility to bring on a number of homes, and as a new entity, we've had to rely on different ways, different tools to increase the pipeline. So the first and the best and the easiest way for Kāinga Ora is to develop our own land holdings. And under the National Policy Urban Development Statement, when you demolish one home, under that statement you're required to replace it with 3. That is bearing in mind that the district planning rules that are in place enable that to happen. Yep. I've only been here for 2.5 years, but our urban development teams often describe the ability to reach that aspiration with Napier, and the planning rules that are in place are fairly reasonable, whereas in other districts it's quite difficult. Also, just to understand, redevelopment, particularly in Napier, is probably a prime opportunity to increase housing supply with the limited amount of land that's available for new opportunities. 2.5 years ago, Kāinga relied on its own construction company to be able to build homes. And as you would imagine, they were busy in Hobsonville Point, in South Auckland, in all the metro areas. So the organisations had to work quite strongly around creating partnerships with developers in the regions, in the centre of the universe. And so those partnerships have enabled us to bring in developers that can help with our construction demand on our redeveloped properties, but also helps us to look for acquisition opportunities where the developers go and purchase the land or the site, they develop the sites, we negotiate with them to meet our standards that are expected as a public housing provider, and then we acquire that final product. Whilst I'm kind of describing this landscape with probably little emotion, don't get me wrong, that whole environment is extremely complex. But one thing just to share is that we have had to rely on partnerships with developers, with the industry to enable this pipeline to come forth. Our current housing stock, and so this is one other point to pick up, particularly for Napier, current housing stock, the average age of our homes in Napier is 48 years old. Our house is built to last 50 years. Yep. So our current stock within Napier is not in a great state. So that has been recognised by the organisation and the board for some years now, and they have a number of programs that they bring in place. One is called the retrofit program. That program comes in, it shifts the tenant out for 3 months. A partner comes in and redevelops that house to a standard that will meet Healthy Home Standard and the likes. That's one way that the organisation relies on lifting the age and the length of time for the current housing stock, but it's really hard. It's really hard because we actually don't have a portfolio that's a vacant portfolio that's available to move those tenants to for that period of time. It's really hard because the contracting and the procurement space for small to medium businesses to go into that work is not easy, but that is a program that we rely on to lift our the state of our portfolio. The other area that we will be looking at in terms of being able to improve the state of homes that we provide to our customers. You may or may not be aware, up until the last year or so, the government of the day has not been open to Kāinga selling off assets, and Napier will be aware of this because of what's happened in the past. We're now looking at, if we've got this redevelopment ability, we've got investment to increase the number of homes, we'll sell an asset at an affordable price to a customer, as long as we can build a brand new home to replace that house. Yep, so there's all these types of pieces of thinking going on. Is that time? This gives you a quick kind of heat map of where we are currently building in Napier. And Marae Nui is the largest strategic land holding that we have in the East North Island. And it's also probably one of those places where Housing New Zealand, Kāinga have failed its responsibility. And so the ability to bring houses back into Marae Nui that are safe, warm and dry, that meet the aspirations of mana whenua, of our whānau that live in Marae Nui, is really important for us. It's taking a long, long time for us to get builds going in Marae Nui, but there are little aspects of that. And again, if I take you back to those strategic drivers that are really important for us to meet, we've got to make sure that we have the support of mana whenua, we have the support of hapu, we have the support of the community, and then we also have our council working alongside us. Is there any questions about that? I'm just going to give you a bit more detail. these slides can be made available to you, but they are commercially sensitive. But they can be made available to the councillors just to give you a sense of the pipeline that's occurring over the next couple of years.
Sorry, can I just stop you there? If they're commercially sensitive, this is being beamed out live on our Facebook
No, that's fine.
site. So-
Yeah, but in terms of giving the information out to be distributed on paper, that's fine.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm not giving any commercially sensitive narrative in this presentation.
great.
So these are developments, particularly for the sites in Maraenui where homes were demolished probably over, 11, 12 years ago now, where the organisation had failed to replace those homes. So there's quite a bit of work that's been happening there, and Councillor Tareha has been supporting the organisation and the developers that are looking to build across those sites. But lots of work to be done here. You may have seen in Mayor Wise, we had the opportunity to bless those, the first homes that came up in Seddon Crescent. That was the last time I made it back down to Napier, because then our friend Cyclone Gabriel came along. But pleased to say that site has now completed. It was also a test site for Ministry of Business and Employment and, what are they called? Innovation and Employment. And Kāinga Ora and the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development to test investment for solar panel approaches.
Could I ask a question?
Yes.
Thank you, Naimai. You said earlier that there was guaranteed investment till 2024 in public housing. These are all included in that?
Yes.
So they're not
Yes.
past 2024? So they're all
Correct.
going to be built.
So what that means is the investment has allowed Kāinga Ora to increase the number of homes that it builds. Post 2025, we most likely will not get that investment to increase the number of houses. What we will have to do is just keep to redeveloping our current portfolio.
And just another question, will that fill all the spaces in Maraenui that are
No.
available?
Onekawa, Hitchings Ave, Cottrell Crescent, Wellesley Road. I'm sure many of you are aware of this. This will be a market delivery and acquisition purchase. Carnell Street. And we're hoping to bring in the Napier City Council operations team very soon to discuss what will happen with Carnell Street. So 3 star blocks. This is public, say the most not nice looking units.
Very public.
And we're hoping to change that. We've done the same in Hastings with Karamu South. So they had 2 star blocks, and looking at what the opportunities are there to do something different, particularly with a site that's really close to schools, can house families, you name it. Yes.
The Carnell Street, will you get a lot more apartments in that area? Because it doesn't look very well. Yeah. I walked past yesterday actually, and I thought
Yes.
there's a lot of spare space in there.
So what we are anticipating to do is bring a number of people together to actually look at what the possibilities are there. Bearing in mind we have some real strict constraints and financial metrics to meet, but that it doesn't necessarily need to be just a public housing site. Yeah. You know, when I first started in Kāinga Ora, there was this talk around mixed tenure, looking at sites where you have affordable housing, public housing, maybe affordable rentals, affordable market houses. The tools that you need to be able to enable it to happen aren't yet all in place. And to be quite honest, affordable housing in Napier is really, really hard. But there are a number of different organisations that are thinking about how to enable that, particularly in the community housing space. So organisations like Veros and Housing Foundation, they have some of those models that enable affordable housing. And so those are things that we need to think about collectively moving forward and how we're going to enable that. Plus provide that balance with your private housing market that will provide to others. One thing for us to be thinking ahead about, because we didn't do this in Hastings and it's kind of come up behind us and we're a little bit behind the game, is about those tools and those funding opportunities that are available for affordable housing. And so Kāinga Ora does have a number of tools available in that respect. First home buyer grants, KiwiSaver, first home withdrawal, you name it. But thinking strategically how we bring those products forward and make them visible for our future tenants or our future homeowners. One of the reasons why Housing New Zealand shifted to Kāinga Ora was to look at how we can improve the way we support our tenants, our customers, our whānau living in our homes. So pre-Kāinga Ora days, we would have had across the whole of East North Island, I think maybe 15 tenancy managers that managed around 4,800 homes. So they all held portfolios of around about 300 to 400 homes each. And as you could imagine, with a workload like that, you don't get across everything that's needed. So there was some investment put into Kāinga Ora to decrease the workload. So we've grown in terms of our frontline staff. They're called housing support managers. We've been very particular in the East North Island that as we recruit, and our recruitment has finished, that we recruit people from our regions that know our communities and know our districts. And then there's a whole lot of other work that goes in behind that. And just to be proactive around the discussion, there is the issue and the concerns that communities have around the behaviours of what is experienced around public housing. And I will be quite frank here, it's not always the public housing tenants that are demonstrating the behaviours, but it is seen to be that way. And there were some changes made last year under the current Housing Minister. So under the Residential Tenancy Housing Act, there are tools now that Kāinga Ora can use to work with a customer if their behaviours are not suitable, and we do have legislative tools that we can use. So most of New Zealand will not know that those tools had been removed from Housing New Zealand over a period of time. Sustaining tenancies, however, still is a very, very important piece to ensuring that we can keep people in their homes. And whilst the average neighbour would like to see some action happen quickly when the behaviours are not suitable, action does occur, but it does take time. Yep. And it's me.
Do you have time for questions or do you have to run for cover?
I've got 3 minutes.
3 minutes. I'll open it up to the floor if anyone's got some questions.
Wow, it's the
Awesome.
first time ever.
Oh,
May I just for clarity, in your presentation you talked about homelessness, and that's 44%. That's on what's on the books for MSD. Is that, I presume that is not the same as the rough sleepers? So the definition of that homelessness, what is that?
Yeah, so that's the demand slide, where it's talking about the number of people that are registered on the social housing register. The information that's come from the Ministry of Housing Development, and Wilma will correct me if I'm wrong, suggests that 44% of those registered have noted that they are homeless. They have currently no home to stay in.
Does that include rough sleepers, or is it just?
It would be those that we were aware of that would have made some application through to us, and that's where MSD's support will be there. They may be couch surfing, they may be living in overcrowded circumstances with whānau, they may be in emergency housing with us. Yeah.
Motels.
Yes, yes.
Councillor Crystal.
Through the chair, just out of interest, do you have limits on the amount of people that can live in the homes? And
Yes.
how do you monitor that?
Yes, so a tenant is, and so the tenancy arrangements with one person. So a tenant and their family makeup is basically determines what size house we can make available for them. When other members come into that house, we just have to work with that tenant around what's suitable for that makeup or not. So when others have other families in their homes, we don't go in and tell them to get out. We work with them to see what better options there are.
Thank you.
No other questions? Well, thank you for your presentation. I hope this was your most exciting meeting for the day.
Yes, I probably said a few things I shouldn't have.
We're all guilty of that.
We are.
We're amongst friends.
I was going to invite my colleagues to come up and join their boss.
Oh, absolutely.
Stephen Wilmot. Thanks so much.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Naomi.
Yes.
To sort the technology out.
We'll just get organised. Yes. Thank you. Kia ora koutou. Am I on? Yes. Koutou koutou rā. Mihi ahu mihi mai. Ko Karen Bartlett aho. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you today about our community. So a subject that obviously is incredibly dear to all of us, and especially in terms of those most vulnerable people. I'll let my team introduce themselves briefly.
Kia ora tātou, mai nei, ko Stephen Brown, tōku ingoa, ko ngai tiwe rau, ko ngai kaunine ko Kiwi. Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora. And I'll just draw your attention to Shah Kingi, who's sitting in the back row over there. Shah has just joined our team, and we thought it was a great opportunity for her to come in, and just started this week. So, where are we? Just before I begin, I just do want to say to all of you and to the officials in the room, thank you for the support around the response, the work that we have all been greatly involved with since the 14th of February. And what a tragic time for our communities. My heart goes out to all of those that have been impacted, some of whom may be here, as is the case with our team. And the collective and collaborative effort to deal with that tragedy has been quite inspiring. Really thrilled to hear of your evening this morning, Mayor Kirsten. So, yeah. We are starting with our guiding principles for MSD. So these we hold true to. We're a very principle-based organisation, and it's important for us, and you will see yourself reflected in all of these. So manaaki, reaching out to people and being looking towards the well-being and the success of people. Mahi tahi, we can't do anything on our own. No organisation can. It is the collective that will make the difference. Whānau are at the centre of all our work, and the desire for them to be thriving, for them to belong to a place and have the dignity of a place, and doing the right thing at all times, so doing things with integrity. So it's always important to touch on these things because we check back against those principles with most of our actions. A little bit about our organisation. As MSD, we have many things to focus on, but it's all about whānau. That's the centre of it. So keeping New Zealanders working, a lot of work in the space of workforce development, of training and supporting people who are either looking to get into employment or looking to train for a new career, or who have come out of employment, particularly in recent times with the cyclone. Income support that's easy to access so that people are supported to have a life with dignity, even if times are particularly tough. That people are supported into safe and sustainable homes. That we partner with each other. As I mentioned before, none of this is done in isolation. Supporting New Zealanders in general, and then of course our more recent focus for our team on the East Coast is working with our flood impacted communities, working with our partners to help achieve the best outcomes for whānau. I think we came, I don't know, it's hard to remember the times now. I'm not sure if it was a year ago or 2 years. Someone better not say it was 3 when we last came and presented to this council. You know, at that time we touched on it's a real opportunity to work more collectively, but then of course things happened, COVID progressed, and then the cyclone. So I see this a little bit as a reset for us to regain that feeling that we had at that time, that there was great areas of work that we could combine on. But we did talk about the complexity of the housing system at that time. So I just want to recap that very briefly. It is a complex machine, to be honest. We find it complex and we're a part of it. So the emergency housing is our space, MSD. This is short-term housing for individuals who have an urgent need. So there is no planning around this. People will appear daily and do appear at our door or the doors of our partners and have a need for emergency housing. It is our job to try and address that need as quickly and as effectively as we can. That is an ongoing challenge. Transitional housing, which is organised by MHUD, provides the next step in that process. So if you make your way to an emergency accommodation, that should see you through to be safe, to not be in your car, to not be in a massively overcrowded situation. Transitional is the next step into a more supported situation. We have support networks wrapped around whānau in that situation, working very closely with them to progress them on to the next step, which is what Naumai talked about, which is public housing, which has subsidised rental accommodation and is managed by kāinga ora and community housing providers. So it isn't just with kāinga ora, it is also with community providers. Our team here has done a piece of work that I think we may have shared with you last time. It is a Hawke's Bay or East Coast initiative really, but we've looked at the drivers of the emergency and transitional housing situation. We felt it was important to understand what brought people to these circumstances, and you'll see it is really varied. We've actually got DHB there, we mean Te Whatu Ora. So there's 12% of people that come to us who have exited the health system. That may be a mental health area. It may be, you know, they've been in hospital for a long period of time. Their accommodation in the meantime has fallen through, whether they can't return to whānau or their accommodation is no longer available. It's actually a decent chunk there. Those with overcrowding, those in overcrowded situations is less, but probably because that doesn't say that that's the only number of people in overcrowded situations. If you're in a house, it's better than being in your car. So, you know, that is probably why that figure is lower. Family harm, where people are having to exit an unsafe situation. This one is always, perhaps not so surprising. So 90-day notices when rental accommodation has been sold. So the market is a big driver in this as well. So 15% there. 16% where people have been evicted for one reason or another. And then family tension or family breakdown is the most significant driver. Now, what these drivers say to me is that this isn't an issue for MSD on its own, or Kāinga Ora, or Napier City Council on its own. This is a full range of partners to, Kāinga Ora can build all the houses in the world, but if we're going to continue to have those drivers of demand, we will continue to have people who will come to us any day of the week and say, we have no accommodation tonight. So it's a complex problem and something that needs to be addressed together.
Sorry, Karen, just a question. Have you found that there's been quite a sharp increase in particular in those people who are having to move out of their rental accommodation? I was reading yesterday that there's been a huge decrease in the stock of rental houses nationally, something by a 20% decrease in the last year or two.
My automatic response would be yes, but I'll defer to the experts on the subject.
Just make sure you use the mic, guys. That's okay. Just for online people. Thank you.
Do we know?
We're not seeing across Ahuriri a significant increase approaching MSD because of the reduction. We've always had a very tight rental market to our whānau that are seeking in the private rental market space. So we're not saying it's not there, but our whānau that have always struggled in that private rental market space, affordability and a capacity of that. So the drivers, what we're seeing currently, even post-cyclone, we've been starting to track, are we seeing the not the unintended consequences, but whānau having to move back into a rental that they had because they were in a flood impacted home, tracking really low of what we're seeing coming through into our emergency space at this time. It's not to say, Mayor-wise, that we won't start seeing some greater demands. Yeah, so no, not currently yet. So if it's coming, then it's something else that we're going to need to plan for.
Actually, that's something we always note when we're comparing to national sorts of drivers, that even, recessions and things like that, we're generally, we enter later and come out of it later. Has been a trend that I've observed across a range of issues.
Thank you.
We're not early adopters or adapters. Where was I? Back? Okay, sorry. Never leave me in charge of the technology.
Did we discuss the previous?
No, this is the one we want. Yep. So this is the figures for the public housing register, which Nomai talked about. We're really hopeful that our figures add up, and if it's not, the reason will be that we did them on different days. No, just so public housing register is. There is an assessment which determines eligibility, and our MSD team carry out that assessment. There's a register of eligible whānau with a serious need. There is a priority, an order of priority, and a preferred location is taken into account in that situation. We also take into account whānau circumstances, schooling, where do they go to kura, employment, social services supports that they're familiar with, that people are familiar with and are participating in. It is very clear that if we move people away from where their connections are, you have less chance to make that a successful shift. So it is worth putting the effort and the energy in upfront to understand those things and to make sure wherever possible the match is right for whānau. And that's a big part of what our housing team does in this exercise. So our team knows the people that are in the emergency accommodation that we work with. That's our responsibility. We know about these things. We're engaging with them regularly, and so we can feed into that decision making to make the best choice. So you'll see for Hastings, the number of people on the priority list is 600. Napier. Sorry, that's Char's fault. 687. So,
I think what we'd say about that slide, and it's a direct impact of Nomai's earlier slide around the 80 delivered whare across Ahuriri. So if we think in June 22, so these were published, these are published quarterly, so this is at the June 23 figures. And if we look at the June 22 figures was 774, so that reduction is a direct, so that is Napier whānau being housed, so we're at about, I think we're at about 10 or 7 or 10 whānau, but that'll be whānau do exit the public housing list for other various reasons, might have left town, taken up either employment or housing in other regions, but the direct impact on the Napier register from June 22 to June 23 has been impacted by those 80 delivered whare across Ahuriri, so it's really good to see. We are tracking down. What we do continue to see across Ahuriri is the strong demand for singles, and Stephen and I are noticing this in our day-to-day mahi about the number of our senior whānau across Ahuriri that are seeking emergency or accommodation, so they're having housing distress and not security of tenure. So it continues to be, and I think we've got those figures up there, the 1 and 2 bedrooms, and it might be about our population over here in Ahuriri and stuff at this point in time, but that's still a very strong driver, and we are seeing that, as I say, I'm just pointing that out, we are seeing that in that emergency and transitional housing space as well. Superannuitants and motels is what we're talking about.
Sorry, Councillor Bogue,
Yes,
Councillor Crystal had a question.
Yeah, I just wondered, are all these people Napier people, or do we get people from out of other regions coming in to our emergency housing?
This is public housing. I don't know if you could say I could, but we work with people who come to us who are looking for housing. We don't experience a big influx of people. During the horticultural season, you may see an increase of people coming to work. None of that is encouraged, but on the other hand, we are here to assist New Zealanders, so that's our main driver. Yeah, we wouldn't say to somebody, we are not in a position to work with you. We would, I would imagine, be having very clear conversations with these people about what has brought them to this place and what is their situation, why, and is there a better option for you where you've come from? So we work with people. There would be no one size fits all in that. It's not a glaringly obvious issue for us.
No. Councillor Bogue.
Yes, with the 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, there is no breakdown, as far as I understand, of the ages of the people requiring that. I know you can get the ages overall, but you can't target them or tie them exactly to the number of bedrooms they wanted in the social housing register. Are most of them older people, or I'm just curious about the age situation for the demand from the different age groups, particularly older people, for housing in Napier.
Yeah, we'll come back to you, Maxine, around that and see if we can get that broken down across Ahuriri. So, but
it's not published.
It's not published, just the singles. Yeah, it's just the singles.
I think the fact is, and with an ageing population, which we know is a particular issue, it flows through that there are more that are in that situation.
And I think possibly your own wait list for your council senior accommodation is also an indication. You get a snapshot probably daily as well about the seniors that are coming through to council looking for council accommodation for your pensioner areas as well. But we'll have a look and see if we can get in that data for you.
I'm just going to go back to this.
Sorry, just one more question. Councillor Brown has a question.
Just interested in how you come up with or what's the process for defining how many bedrooms a whānau needs?
Yeah, good question. So I think Nomai touched on it. So MSD does do the public housing assessments on behalf of any whānau that wants to test their eligibility to be for public housing. So it is based on the number of children, the ages of the children, the sex of each child. So it's what would you say formula? It is, yeah, it is based on whānau size and the actual makeup per child and of each individual that's in that buddy determines the bedrooms.
Thank you. I'll just go a little bit off script here. So when we talked earlier about emergency responsibility and our place in that, which is our main place, although we're part of the wider system, we work very hard to minimise the reliance of whānau in motels. That's not, nobody would say that is a satisfactory situation. And just reflecting on what Wilma shared about the fact that those new whare that Kāinga Ora have brought on has given us that reduction. So you'd have to think we are starting to move in the right direction. But that's our, our driver. How can we see whānau move into a satisfactory accommodation, which may be through public housing or maybe other means.
Yeah. One more from Councillor Bogue, and then I think if we can keep our questions to the discussion afterwards when we adjourn, unless it's really urgent.
Is it possible for you to give us an idea of how many children are living in motels at the moment? A ballpark figure, or
I could, yeah, I can give you a percentage of whānau with children. So we've got over 100 people. These figures change regularly and have to be audited. And so we've got over 100 people, whānau, living in emergency housing at the moment, and 57 of them have children. So we have one is too many, as you know. Yeah. Yes.
I think we work really hard too, Maxine, is to drive down the duration that our whānau are in emergency accommodation. So as Karen had shared in the earlier slide, emergency accommodation is that very first crisis response when whānau approach MSD and say, I have nowhere to sleep tonight. And obviously we have a huge kōrero with that whānau around their set of circumstances because the motel situation is not the first option. So we're exploring every other option. However, whānau are placed into a motel. Our everyday mahi for Stephen and I is to ensure that the duration that whānau are in emergency is as short as possible as it can be. And obviously the demand, and Karen talked on that transitional space, MSD also is really blessed to be working with amazing partners that we have partnered up with in that emergency housing space to support whānau while they're in the emergency motel situation. We've got great partners over Ahuriri here, Te Kupunga Hauora, Ropa Iwi Trust, Whatever It Takes Trust, Emerge Aotearoa, that are out there in our motels with our whānau on a weekly basis, engaging with them. So they've got amazing case management, I'm a bit biased, case management inside MSD, but they also have amazing support from amazing community partners that are working with those whānau, working with us to try and ensure that we have the duration that they're in that emergency state for as short a period of time as possible.
And the average at the moment is 21 weeks in emergency housing, which once again is too long. In transitional housing, the average duration is 58 weeks, so that's that big step up in security for whānau. So I just thought I'd touch on, so we have our case managers, we have our providers that wrap around whānau in this situation. We also have a number of support services and funding supports to help. This is just a list of them, so I won't go through those in detail. But one of the other services we have is a housing brokerage service. So we now have two for the region, and these people work with people who are either in emergency housing or needing to be in emergency housing to try and find them other solutions, whether it be in the market, looking to opportunities where they may be able to maximise their KiwiSave, or just trying to spread the options and help them find other solutions. And we do get some successes in that regard. So it is quite a service that we offer, that we wrap around, and our team, we're very lucky. We've got a very strong housing team, are very innovative at looking at ways other ways that we can support whānau to be successful. Our housing team and our employment team work together quite closely because perhaps helping someone in the whānau to get into work might give them quicker access to a rental accommodation. So we try and take quite a holistic view of the situation for each whānau. Have you got enough income? Are you getting everything you need? Are the children close to kura and are they attending? Are you getting all your entitlements that you deserve and childcare support, all those sorts of things. Try and work with them to make sure that they're successful in their lives because that will help in that housing situation.
I think that's what's key to the financial products that MSD has for whānau. They're there to ensure that homes are sustainable and that we're ensuring that they're receiving this full suite of financial support to ensure that, or if they get into financial distress, that we've got support products to ensure that we can sustain that tenancy, because we spend, like Nomai talked about inside Kāinga Ora around a sustaining tenancies model, we also have a strong sustaining tenancies kaupapa, which is around ensuring that whānau stay, if they've got a private rental, that we're doing everything to support whānau to maintain that private rental. Our housing brokers do amazing mahi with landlords, and that's around some profiling of whānau, as well as working alongside landlords to ensure if there are any issues that they're letting us know early so we can mitigate those to ensure that we're preventing whānau coming into that emergency housing space.
Yeah, that's really useful in those 90-day notices as well, getting in there, working with landlords, see if we can sustain that tenancy longer. It might be a new landlord that we can transfer the whānau over, so trying to whānau who are in that private rental market, trying to keep them in that, as opposed to coming into emergency housing if there's another option. So we really work hard to try and make that work.
So we started out at the bottom of the cliff, but we are working very hard to do what we can around the whole scenario. This last slide is just what we're all aiming for. Happy whānau in warm, safe, dry homes, contributing to the community. We have amazing partners, and this slide reflects all of those partners that we work with. And the opportunity to do more of that is probably the only way we're going to get on top of the housing issue for Napier and for the rest of our community. So that's our formal presentation, but we're very keen to hear any more questions and do what we can to answer.
Okay. Councillor Crown.
Thank you, through the chair. When Nomai talked about their policy direction around the investment level, it just made me think, your current model of service around emergency housing, does that have an end date on it? Have you had any indication, or is it just, that's what it is and it will continue regardless of the current political landscape? Providing
that service, there has been no indication from anyone that will change. There is a high demand. You know, you look back to Ministry of Social Development principles, and we're here doing that job for a little while longer. One day we may not have to, and that'll be a good day. Yeah.
Joe, question?
Yeah, kia ora inga rangatira. As a recipient of the emergency housing store now, because Waiōhiki is just still sort of slowly coming back to its end, I just want to acknowledge the good work that you've done, and I know Stephen, and they're always contacting us and making sure that we're okay and what else do we need to do. So just a big tautoko to you and your team. You know, kia ora.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right. No further questions. Do I have a mover and a seconder for the officer's recommendation, which is to receive the presentation today? Councillor Bogue and Councillor Brown. Would you like to speak to that?
Just once again, thank you very much for coming and giving us this presentation. I think it's really important for us to stay in touch with you and work as closely as we can in partnership. We're all on the same waka, we're all looking after the well-being of our people. So thank you very much for the work you do right out there on the front line.
Thank you.
Councillor Brown? No? Any other speakers for or against?
Oh, kia ora koutou. Just quick question on how the renovations in Taradale office are going and everything on track. And also, would you know if that's impacted on the Taradale clients with you guys moving to Hinapō and whānau may have to travel over to Napier?
Right.
Nā mihi ki a koe chat and nā mihi ko tautoko te karaki on our day that we left. So the renovations are coming along amazingly well. We just have been sent some photos, so we're not allowed on site. So we sent photos, so we're on track for the 20th. So to be back into the Taradale, so Otatara site on the 20th of September as the staff and open for whānau on the 21st. The first patai. Tuarua. We emailed, we communicated with our whānau o Otatara me Tamatea me Green Meadows prior to closing and had advised all our whānau about other ways to engage with us for that short period of time that we were going to be out of the tare. And but to be fair, we have seen a little bit more foot traffic in Ahuriri and the staff down there, and we've moved all our staff into the Ahuriri site. So where we can, we do as much as we can online over the phone. But if whānau have needed to come in, and they've come in, some of the whānau have been in from out that way. So short period of time, but we try to minimise the impact that would have on our community, our hapori out there, and some of the mahi that we did leading up to coming out on the 25th of August has paid some dividends. We look forward to seeing you again on the 20th.
Councillor Brown?
Yeah, just to say thank you. This has been a wonderful opportunity and really great to understand some of the challenges that you're facing and how we can all work together for the community. So
Kia ora. Thank you.
Right, I certainly agree with that. I'll just put it to the councillors. I'll now put the motion to receive the presentation from Kāinga Ora and the Ministry of Social Development on their social housing developments. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. We're now going to break for 15 minutes. So we'd like, if there's any questions, the team can ask you, and
Yes, certainly.
we can have a bit of a get together, and we'll be back in 15 minutes.
Thank you very much.
Back into our meeting. The technology's up and running and everyone's back at their seats. So, agenda item 2 is a funding application for neurodiverse Tamariki. And we have Glenn Lucas here to present the report.
Mr. Chairman, I declare an interest in this matter.
Yes, thank you for that.
Kia ora koutou. Ko Glenn Lucas toku ingoa, he kaimea ahau atu kanihira ahuriri. The purpose of the paper that's in front of you is to seek approval to enable us to apply for external funding through the Te Manawa Trust, which is allocated by Sport Hawke's Bay, for the running of a water safety and confidence program for children who are neurodiverse and have many barriers to accessing mainstream swimming lessons. So I will take the paper as read, but really briefly, the program is to provide a water safety and confidence program for children who are neurodiverse. The program is proposed to run 6 lessons a week for 40 weeks, so during the school term time. And due to the needs of the tamariki, the requirement is to keep the groups really small. We're looking at tamariki between 5 and 12 years of age, or children between 5 and 12 years of age. What we're applying for is the cost to cover the delivery of the program and the professional development of our swimming instructors to make sure that they are equipped to deliver these lessons appropriately. I think really notably the concept came about through direct conversations that Hayden Kennedy, who's our growth and activation lead, were having with the parents of neurodiverse kids themselves. So it really is a community-led initiative, which since that conversation there's been people like Kowhai School and that sort of thing jump on, but it really is a grassroots community-led initiative. The initial period that we're applying for is a trial, but the intention is that should the trial be successful, that we continue and look to expand the program. So the officer's recommendation in the paper is that the Napier People and Places Committee approve the external funding application for the running of the program. The total amount of funding, which is $9,935, covers both the employing the swimming instructors and the professional development of the swimming instructors through a course through Autism New Zealand. And I think just briefly, I wanted to give credit to Hayden Kennedy and Darren Finlayson at Napier Aquatic Centre because this has come from him. I've just got the privilege, because they're both away today, to talk through the paper for their role in developing the idea to get to this point. It truly is, in my opinion, a core role of a community aquatic facility to identify these specific groups that have needs that can't be met or aren't being met, and have specific barriers in place and develop some solutions to meet the needs of these groups. So I'll do my very best to answer any questions about this. I reserve the right to maybe phone a friend or to come back to you if I don't know all of the answers, but yeah, but please.
Are there any questions? Oh, all the hands rushing up. Councillor Gregg.
Through the chair. Thanks, Glenn, for your report. Just 2 questions. Are you hoping to maintain your current pricing structure for these lessons? Like, as in, are the parents going to pay the same amount or?
So the intention of, through the chair, sorry, the intention of the funding application is to cover most, if not all, the costs of providing these lessons. So we know that cost is a barrier for, for a lot of people and parents. So the intention is that all of the costs are covered through this application. Yeah, as we move forward, and if the trial is successful, we might need to look at funding through other areas to make sure it happens, because I don't think putting all of the funding on the parents of these kids of neurodiverse is the right way to go. So we'd always be looking for some sort of external funding to cover most, if not all, of the cost of delivery.
Thanks for that. One more question. So will the swimming instructors be employed specifically for this, or will you be using your current instructors, or a mix of both?
Good question. Through the chair, so it is using our current instructors. So it's one of the beauties of this program, I think, is that we're teaching our people to for really important skills which you can use for for not just this group of customers, but lots and lots of other groups that maybe have specific and more specific and targeted needs. So yes, so they're our team that we'll be training.
Councillor Crown.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Just wondering around the timing or the capacity of our pools, if this is added in as a service. Like, is there any other group that would
have to change their current usage of the pools, or is it easily accommodated?
That may be a level of operational detail I might need to come back to you on, but I do know that they're looking at using Ellen's pool. So that's the little learn to swim pool out the back, and it does seem to be a really appropriate facility for that. That pool is really only used during peak learn to swim time, so after schools and on Saturdays. So if this program works in and around those times, then it should be completely fine.
Right, thank you.
Councillor Bogue.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. This is a great proposal. I just wondered, are you aware if Sport Hawke's Bay has a budget for this kind of program?
So the 2 manawa fund that we're applying for through Sport Hawke's Bay, yeah, it's a pretty significant pot of money that they have through Sport New Zealand to allocate to these sorts of projects. We have had conversations with them, and it hasn't been, obviously we haven't submitted the proposal yet, so we don't know whether we're going to get it or not, but it's been viewed as relatively favourably, so we've got every chance of success with this application.
No further questions? Any Councillor Mawson.
No, sorry, I was happy to move.
Councillor Mawson's happy to move this. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Crystal. Would the mover and the seconder like to speak?
Yeah, just I think any project that helps out our children, and especially in the neurodiverse space, is brilliant. And just a point, I mean, obviously it's an external funding application, so you know the 2 manawa fund, that's exactly trust fund, is actually what it's for this sort of thing. So yeah, all the best.
Anything that teaches New Zealanders to swim is a plus in my books. All New Zealanders should be able to swim because we have really high drowning rates. So I think this is a really positive thing that we can do for our children in this neurodiverse space. So, yeah.
Any other speakers? That being the case, I will put the motion forward as read out by Glenn earlier. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Hold fire. That gets us to the end of my meeting, but I do just have a few things I'd like to, a few shout outs prior to the end of it. I'd like to thank those who helped run and coached and refereed the regional high school junior and senior basketball tournament at PGA. Huge event and great for our city. I'd like to congratulate the NCC gardening team for their Rugby World Cup garden up by the Sound Shell. If you get an opportunity to see it, go up and have a look. It's really awesome. Good luck to the Magpies on Saturday. Go the All Blacks and up the Wars.
While they're winning.
So we will adjourn now, and we'll go into the Prosperous Napier Committee.